Hello everyone, and welcome to Halloween month, which, son of a bitch, I forgot to literally put in the title Halloween month day 1. Damn it. I'll have to make sure to put that, actually give me a second. I'm going to put that on the YouTube one, so at least the YouTube one will be more accurate in this case. I do apologize for not mentioning that. That's pretty bad. Hang on. Halloween month day 1. That's it. It's day 1 of Halloween month. And we're going to start it off a little bit differently this time. This time, I'm going to tell you guys a story. A story from the game that is mentioned in the title. F13's Everything's Eventual. Go. I also just started creating a new playlist for this one, so we'll be doing that from now on. But yeah, we are ready to go. Here we go. Just got everything set up. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, boom. So, here we are, folks. I'm here to tell you the story of Everything's Eventual. This is the first time I'm ever reading a storybook to you, so it's going to be very interesting to say the least. So, if you guys are in for a the mic just glitched. Alright, so let's just hope that this time it doesn't glitch. Alright, so everything's good. Alright. For here we go. Let's start with the story. Everything is eventual. Let us begin. I've got a good job now, and no reason to feel glum. No more hanging out with the Gumby heads at the Super Saver, policing up the cart corral, and getting bothered by assholes like Skipper. Skipper's munching the old dirt sandwiches these days. But one thing I have learned in my 19 years on this planet Earth is don't relax. There are Skippers everywhere. Ditto no more pulling pizza patrol on rainy nights, driving my old Ford with a bad muffler, freezing my ass off with the driver's side window down, and the little Italian flag sticking out on a wire. Like somebody in Harkerville was going to salute. Pizza Roma. Right? Quarter tips from people who don't even see you, because most of their minds still on the TV football game. Driving for Pizza Roma was the lowest point, I think. Since then, I've even had a ride in a private jet. So how could things be bad? This is what comes of leaving school without a diploma. Ma would say during my delivery dance stint, and you've got to look forward to And you've got this to look forward to for the rest of your life. Good old Ma. On and on. Until I actually thought about writing her one of those special letters. As I say, that was the low point. You know what Mr. Sharpton told me that night in his car? It's not just a job, Dink. It's a goddamn adventure. And he was right. Whatever he might have been wrong about, he was right about that. I suppose you're wondering about the salary of this famous job. Well, I gotta tell you, there's not much money in it. Might as well get that right up front. But the job isn't just about money or getting ahead. That's what Mr. Sharpton told me. Mr. Sharpton said that a real job is about the fringe benefits. He said that's where the power is. Mr. Sharpton, I only saw him that once. Sitting behind the wheel of his big old Mercedes-Benz. But sometimes once is enough. Take that any way you want. Any old way at all. Still, I've got a house, okay? My very own house. That's fringe benefit number 1. I call Ma sometimes. Ask how her bad leg is. Shoot the shit. But I've never invited her over here. Although Harkerville is only 70 or so miles away, and I know she's practically busting a gut with curiosity. I don't even have to go see her unless I want to. Mostly I don't want to. If you knew my mother, you wouldn't want to either. Sit there in that living room with her while she talks about all her relatives and whines about her puffy leg. Also, I never noticed how much the house smelled of cat shit until I got out of it. I'm never going to have a pet. Pets bite the big one. Mostly I just stay here. It's only got 1 bedroom, but it's still an excellent house. Eventual, as Pug used to say. He was the only guy at the Super Saver I liked. When he wanted to say something was really good, Pug never say it was awesome, like most people do. He said it was eventual. How funny is that? The old Pugmeister. Wonder how he's doing. Okay, I suppose, but I can't call him and make sure. I can call my ma, and I have an emergency number if anything ever goes wrong, or if I think somebody's getting noisy about what's not their business and whatnot. But I can't buzz any of my old friends, as if any of them besides Pug gave a shit. Well, gave a shit one about Dinky Earnshaw. Mr. Sharpton's rules. But never mind that. Let's go back to my house in Columbia City. Oh, hold on. You should read it for the next corner story mode. That'd be fun. I'll have to find a digital copy of it so I can read it to you guys. Let's go back to my house here in Columbia City. How many 19-year-old high school dropouts do you know who have their own house, plus a new car? Only a Honda, true, but the first 3 numbers on the odometer are still zeros. And that's the important part. It has a radio/tape player, and I don't slide in behind the wheel wondering if the goddamn thing will start, like I always did with the Ford, which Skipper used to make fun of. The asshole mobile, he called it. Why are there so many Skippers in the world? That's what I really wonder about. I don't get some money, by the way. I do get some money, by the way. More than enough to meet my needs. Check this out. I watch as the world turns every day while I'm eating my lunch. And on Thursdays, about halfway through the show, I hear the clack of a mail slot. I don't do anything then. I'm not supposed to. Like Mr. Sharpton said, them's the rules, Dink. I just watch the rest of my show. The exciting stuff on the soaps always happens around the weekends anyway. Murders on Fridays, fucking on Mondays. But I watch right to the end every day. Just the same. I'm especially careful to stay in the living room until the end on Thursdays. On Thursdays, I don't even go out to the kitchen for another glass of milk. When World is over, I turn off the TV for a while. Oprah Winfrey comes on next. I hate her show. All that sitting around talking shit is for the ma's. For the ma's of the world. And go out to the front hall. Lying on the floor under the mail slot, there's always a plain white envelope, sealed. Nothing written on the front. Inside, there'll be either 14 $5 bills or 7 $10 bills. That's my money for the week. Here's what I do with it. I go to the movies twice, always in the afternoon, when it's just $4.50. That's $9. On Saturday, I fill up my Honda with gas, and that's usually about $7. Okay, seriously? Where do you get your gas, and where can I find it? Seriously, with the gas prices nowadays. I don't drive much. I'm not invested in it. As Pug would say, you know? So now we're up to $16. I'll eat out maybe 4 times at Mickey D's. Either at breakfast, egg McMuffin, coffee, and 2 hash browns. Why does that sound so familiar? Or at dinner, quarter pounder with cheese. Oh, I don't order that. Never mind that ARC shit. What dimball thought of that one up? Once a week, I put on chinos and a button-up shirt and see how the other half-lives have a fancy meal at a place like Adam's Ribs or the Chuck Wagon. All of that goes to me about $25. And we're up to $41 total. Then I might go buy News Plus and buy a stroke book or 2. Not really kinky. Just your usual, like, variations or a penthouse. I've tried writing these mags down on Dinky's dayboard, but with no success. I can buy them myself, and they don't disappear on cleaning day or anything, but they don't show up. If you see what I'm getting at. Like most other stuff does, honestly. I guess Mr. Sharpton's cleaners don't like to buy dirty stuff. It's a pun, of course. Also, I can't get to any of the sex stuff on the internet. Trust me, I've tried, but it's blocked out. Somehow. Usually, things like that are easy to deal with. You go under or around the roadblocks if you can't bash straight through, but this is different. Not to belabor the point, but I can't dial 900 numbers on the phone either. Oh, thank you. The auto dialer works, of course, and if I want to call somebody just at random, anywhere in the world, and shoot the shit with them for a while, that's okay. That works. But 900 numbers don't. You just get a busy line. Probably just as well. In my experience, thinking about sex is like, I don't know, scratching poison ivy. You only spread it around. Besides, sex is no big deal. At least for me. It's there, but it isn't eventual. Still considering what I'm doing. That little prudy streak is sort of weird. Almost funny. Except, I seem to have lost my sense of humor on the subject. A few others as well. Oh well, back to the budget. if I get variations, and I use that in quotations, of course, that's $4 when we're up to 45. Some of the money that's left I might use to buy a CD, although I don't have to, or a candy bar too. I know I shouldn't, because my complexion still blows dead rats, although I'm almost not a teenager anymore. I think of calling out for a pizza or for Chinese sometimes, but it's against Transcorp's rules. Also, I would feel weird doing it, like a member of the oppressing class. I have delivered pizza, remember? I know what a sucky job it is. Still, if I could order in a pizza, the pizza guy wouldn't leave the house with a quarter tip. I'd lay 5 on him. Watch his eyes light up. But you're starting to see what I mean about not needing a lot of cash money, aren't you? When Thursday morning rolls around again, I usually have at least $8 left. And sometimes it's more like 20. What do I do with the coins? Is drop them down the storm drain in front of my house. I am aware that this would freak the neighbors out if they saw me doing it. I'm a high school dropout, but I didn't leave because I was stupid. Thank you very much. So I take out the blue recycling basket with the newspaper in it, and sometimes with a penthouse of variations buried halfway down the stack. I don't keep that shit around for long. Who would? And while I'm putting it down on the curb, I open the hand with the change in it, and through the grate in the gutter, it goes. Just goes tinkle, tinkle, and then splash right into the water. Very dirty water. Like a magician's trick. Now you see it, now you don't. Someday that drain will get clogged up. They'll send a guy down there and he'll think he won the fucking lottery. Unless there's a flood or something that pushes all the change down to the waste treatment plant or whatever it goes. By then, I'll be gone. I'm not going to spend my life in Columbia City. I can tell you that. I'm leaving, and soon, one way or another. The currency is easier. I just poke it down the garbage disposal in the kitchen. Another magic trick. Presto changeo, money into lettuce. You probably think that's very weird. Running money through the sink pig. I did too. At first. But you get used to just about anything after you do it a while. And besides, there's always another 70 falling through the letter slot. The rule is simple. No squirreling it away. End the week broke. Besides, it's not millions we're talking about here. Only $8 or $10 a week. Chump change, really. Dinky's Day Board. That's another fringe benefit. I write down whatever I want during the week, and I get everything I ask for, except for Sex Max, as I told you. Maybe I'll get bored with that eventually, but right now it's like having Santa Claus all year round. Mostly what I write down is groceries, like anyone does on their kitchen chalkboard, but by no means is groceries at all. I might, for instance, write down new Bruce Willis video, or new Weezer CD, or something like that. A funny thing about that Weezer CD, since we're on that subject, I happened to go into Tunes Express on Friday after my movie was over. I always go to the show on Friday afternoons, even if there's nothing I really want to see. Because that's when the cleaners come. Just killing time inside because it was rainy and that squashed going to the park. And while I was looking at the new releases, this kid asks a clerk about the new Weezer CD. The clerk tells him it won't be for another 10 days or so. But I'd had it since the Friday before. Fringe Benefits, like I say. If I write down sport shirt on the dayboard, well, there it is when I get back to the house on Friday night. Always in one of the nice earth tone colors I like. If I write down new jeans or chinos, I get those. All stuff from the Gap, which is where I go myself.
Did you read what she could do?
Mm-hmm. If I had to do stuff like that... Oh, hold on, let me double check here. Yeah. If I had to do stuff like that, you know, if I want a certain kind of aftershave lotion or cologne, I write down Dinky's dayboard and it's on the bathroom counter when I get home. I don't date it. I don't date, but I'm a fool for cologne. Go figure. Here's something you'll laugh at, I bet. Once I wrote down Rembrandt painting on the dayboard. Then I spent the afternoon at the movies and walking in the park, watching people making out and dogs catching frisbees, thinking how eventual it would be if the cleaners actually brought me my own fucking Rembrandt. Thinking of it, a genuine old master on the wall of the house in the Sunset Knolls section of Columbia City. How eventual would that be? And it happened. In a matter of speaking, anyway. My Rembrandt was hung on the living room wall when I got home. Over the sofa, where the velvet clowns used to be. My heart was beating about 200 miles a minute as I walked across the room toward it. When I got closer, I saw it was just a copy. You know, a reproduction. I was disappointed, but not very. I mean, it was a Rembrandt, just not an original Rembrandt. Another time I wrote autographed photo of Nicole Kidman on the dayboard. I think she's the best looking actress alive. God, this is a really old book if she's mentioning her. But still. Oh. She just gets me on so much. Ugh. And when I got home that day, there was a publicity still of her on the fridge, held there by a couple of those little vegetable magnets, and that time it was the real deal. I know because of the way it was signed. To Dinky Earnshaw, with love and kisses from Nicole. Wow. Damn, getting an autograph from a celebrity. That's pretty damn lucky. Oh, baby, oh honey. Tell you something, my friend. If I worked hard and really wanted it, there might be a real Rembrandt on my wall someday. Sure, in a job like this, there is nowhere to go but up. In a way, that's the scary part. I never have to make grocery lists. The cleaners know what I like. Stouffer's frozen dinners, especially that boil in the bag and stuff. They called creamed chipped beef. And Ma had always called, well, shit, on a shingle. Frozen strawberries, whole milk, preformed hamburger patties that you just have to slap on a hot frying pan. I hate playing with the raw meat. Dole puddings, the ones that come in the plastic cups. Bad for my complexion, but I love them. Ordinary food like that. If I want something special, I write it down on Dickie's dayboard. Once I asked for a homemade apple pie. Specifically, not from the supermarket. And when I came back that night, around the time it was getting dark, my pie was in the fridge with the rest of the week's groceries. Only it wasn't wrapped up. It was just sitting there on a blue plate. That's how I knew it was homemade. I was a little hesitant about eating it at first, not knowing where it came from and all. And then I decided I was being stupid. A person doesn't really know where supermarket foods come from. If it comes to that, right? I mean, we assume it's okay because it's wrapped or in a can or double sealed for your protection. But anyone could have been handling it with the dirty fingers before it was double sealed, or sneezing great big whoops of booger breath on it, or even wiping their asses with it. I don't mean to gross you out, but it's true, isn't it? The world is full of strangers, and a lot of them are up to no good. I have a personal experience of this, believe me. Anyway, I tried the pie, and it was delicious. I ate half of it Friday night, and the rest on Saturday morning. While I was running the numbers in Cheney, or is it Cheyenne? Oh no, it's Cheyenne, Wyoming. Okay. Sorry, my glasses are fogged up. Give me a second. I'm gonna clean my glasses here for a second, folks. Give me a second. There we go. Oh, that's much better. Most of Saturday night I spent on the toilet, shitting my brains out from all those apples. I guess, but I didn't care. The pie was worth it. Like my mother used to make, is what people say, but it can't be my mother, they say about it. My mom burns boiling water. Go figure. I never have to write down underwear on the dayboard. Every 5 weeks or so, the old drawers disappear, and there are brand new Hanes jockey shorts in my bureau. 4 or 3 packs, still in their plastic bags, double sealed for my protection. Toilet paper, laundry soap, dishwater soap. I never have to write any of that shit down. Just appears. Very eventual, don't you think? I've never seen the cleaners, any more than I have ever seen the guy. Or maybe it's a gal? Who delivers my $70 every Thursday during As the World Turns. I never want to see them, either. I don't need to. For one thing. For another, yes, okay, I'm afraid of them. Just like I was afraid of Mr. Sharpton in his big gray Mercedes on the night when I went out to meet him. So sue me. I don't eat lunch in my house on Fridays. I watch As the World Turns, then jump in my car and drive into town. I get a burger at Mickey D's, then go to the movies, then to the park if the weather is good. I like the park. It's a good place to think. And these days, I've got an awful lot to think about. If the weather is bad, I go to the mall. Now that the days are beginning to shorten, which is actually oddly a coincidence right now, I'm thinking about taking up bowling again. It'd be something to do on Friday afternoons, at least. I used to go then with Pug. I sort of miss Pug. Wish I could call him. Just shoot the shit. Tell him some stuff that's been going on. Like about the guy Neff, for instance. Oh well. Spin the ocean. While I'm away, the cleaners are doing my house chores from wall to wall and top to bottom. Wash the dishes, although I'm pretty good about that myself. Wash the floors, wash the dirty clothes, changing sheets, put out fresh towels, restock the fridge, get any of the incidentals that are written on the day board. It's like living in a hotel with the world's most efficient, not to mention eventual, maid service. The one place that they don't mess around with much is the study off the dining room. I keep that room fairly dark. The shades are pulled, and they've never raised them to let in so much as a crack of daylight, like they do in the rest of the house. It never smells of lemon pledge in there either. Although every other room just about reeks of it on Friday nights. Sometimes it's so bad I have these sneezing fits. It's not an allergy, more like fucking protest demonstration. Someone vacuums the floor in there, and they empty the waste paper basket, but no one has ever moved any of the papers that I keep on the desk, no matter how cluttered up and junky looking they are. Once I put a little piece of tape over where the drawer about the knee hole opens, but it was still there, unbroken, when I got back home that night. I don't keep anything top secret in that drawer, you understand. I just wanted to know. Also, if the computer and modem are on when I leave, they're still on when I come back. The VDT showing one of the screensaver programs, usually one of the people doing stuff behind their blinds in the high-rise building, because that's my favorite. If my stuff was off when I left, it's off when I come back. They don't mess around in Dinky's study. Maybe the cleaners are afraid of me too. I got the call that changed my life just when I thought the combination of Ma and delivering from Pizza Roma was going to drive me crazy. I know how melodramatic that sounds, but in this case, it's true. The call came on my night off. Ma was out with her girlfriends, playing bingo at the reservation. All of them smoking up a storm and no doubt laughing every time they pulled B12 out of the hopper and said, "All right, ladies, it's time to take your vitamins." Me, I was watching Clint Eastwood movies on TNT and wishing I was anywhere else on planet Earth, Saskatchewan even. The phone rings, and I think, oh good, it's Pug. Gotta be. And so when I pick it up, I say in the smoothest voice, "You've reached the Church of Any Eventuality, Harkerville Branch. Reverend Dink speaking." "Hello, Mr. Earnshaw," a voice says back. It was one I'd never heard before, but it didn't seem the least put out or puzzled by my bullshit. I was mortified enough for both of us, though. Have you ever noticed that when you do something like that on the phone, try to be cool right from the pickup, it's never the person you expected on the other end? Once I heard about this girl who picked up the phone and said, "Hi, it's Helen, and I want you to fuck me raw," because she was sure it was her boyfriend. Only it turned out to be her father. Ooh. That story is probably made up. Like one of those like the one about the alligators in New York sewers, or letters from in the penthouse. But you get the point. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I say, too flustered to wonder about how the owner of this strange voice knows that Reverend Dink is also Mr. Earnshaw. Actual name Richard Ellery Earnshaw. I thought you were someone else. I am someone else, the voice says. And although I didn't laugh then, I did later on. Mr. Sharpton was someone else, all right. Seriously. Eventually, someone else. Can I help you? I asked. If you want my mother, I'll have to take a message because she's... I'll play bingo. I know. In any case, I want you, Mr. Earnshaw. I want to offer you a job. For a moment, I was surprised to say anything. Then it hit me. Some sort of phone scheme? Phone scam? Whatever. I've got a job. I go. Sorry. Delivering pizza, right? He says, sounding amused. Well, I suppose, if you call that a job. Who are you, mister? I asked. My name is Sharpton. And now let me cut through the bullshit, as you might say. Mr. Earnshaw, Dink? May I call you Dink? Sure, I said. Can I call you Sharpie? Call me whatever you want. Just listen. I'm listening. And I was, too. Why not? The movie the movie on the tube was Coogan's Bluff. Not one of the Clint's better efforts. I want to make you the best job offer you've ever had. And the best one you probably will ever have. It's not just a job, Dink. It's an adventure. Gee, where have I heard that before? I had a bowl of popcorn in my lap, and I tossed a handful in my mouth. This was turning into fun, sort of. Other promise? I deliver. But this is a discussion we must have face to face. Will you meet me? Are you a queer? I asked. No. There was a touch of amusement in his voice. Just enough so that it was hard to disbelieve. And I was already in the hole, so to speak, from the smart-ass way I answered the phone. My sexual orientation doesn't come into this, right? Then why are you yanking my chain, then? I don't know anybody who call at 9:30 in the fucking night and offer a job. Do me a favor. Put the phone down and go look in your front hall. Crazier and crazier. But what did I have to lose? I did what he said and found an envelope lying there. Someone had poked it through the mail slot while I was watching Clint Eastwood chase Don Stroud through Central Park. The first envelope of many, although of course I didn't know that then. I tore it up, and 7 $10 bills fell out into my hand. Also, a note. This can be the beginning of a great career. Let me see if I can turn up the music for you. I went back into the living room, still looking at the money. Know how weirded out I was? I almost sat on my bowl of popcorn. I saw it at the last second. Set it aside, of course. Oop. And plopped back on the couch. I picked up the phone, really sort of expecting Sharpton to be gone. But when I said hello, he answered, "What's this all about?" I asked him. "What's the $70 for?" "I'm keeping it, but not because I think you owe anything. I didn't fucking ask for anything." "The money is absolutely yours," Sharpton says, "with not a string in the world attached. But I'll let you in on a secret, Dink. A job isn't just about money. A real job is about the fringe benefits. That's where power is." "If you say so." "Oh, I absolutely do. And all I ask is that you meet me and hear a little more. I'll make you an offer that will change your life, if you take it. That will open the door to a new life. In fact, once I've made that offer, you can ask all the questions you like. Although I must be honest and say you probably won't get all the answers you like. And if I just decide to walk away, I'll shake your hand, clap you on the back, and wish you good luck." When did you want to meet? Part of me, well, most of me, still thought all this was a joke. But there was a minority opinion forming by then. There was the money, for one thing. 2 weeks worth of tips driving for Pizza Roma. And that's if business was good. But mostly, it was the way that Sharpton talked. He sounded like he had been to school. And I don't mean Sheep's Reedham State College over in Van Drusen either. And really, what harm could there be? Since Skipper's accident, there was no one on planet Earth who wanted to take after me in a way that was dangerous or painful. Well, Ma, I suppose. But her only weapon was her mouth. And she wasn't into elaborate practical jokes. Also, I couldn't see her parting with $70. Not when there was still a bingo game in the vicinity. "Tonight," he said. "Right now, in fact." "Alright, why not?" Come on over, I guess, if you can drop an envelope full of tens through the mail slot. You don't need to give you the address. Not at your house. I'll meet you in the Super Saver parking lot." My stomach dropped like an elevator with the cables cut, and the conversation stopped being the least bit funny. Maybe this was some kind of setup, something with cops in it, even. I told myself no one could know about Skipper, least of all the cops, but Jesus. There was the letter. Skipper could have left the letter lying around anywhere. Nothing in it anyone could make out, of course, except for his sister's name. But there are millions of Debbies in the world. No more than anyone could have made out the stuff I wrote on the sidewalk outside. Mr. Bukowski's yard, or so I would have said before the goddamn phone rang. But who could be absolutely sure? You know what they say about guilty consciences, right? I didn't exactly feel guilty about Skipper. Not then. But still. The Super Savers, kind of a weird place for a job interview, don't you think? Especially when it's been closed since 8 o'clock. That's what makes it good, Dink. Privacy in a public place. I'll park right by the cart coral. You know the car. It's a big gray Mercedes. I'll know it because it'll be the only one there. Right? I said, but he was already gone. I hung up and put the money in my pocket, almost without realizing what I was doing. I was sweating lightly all over my body. The voice on the phone wanted me to meet by the cart coral, where Skipper had so often teased me. Where he had once mashed my fingers between a couple of shopping carts, laughing when I screamed. That hurts the worst, getting your fingers mashed. For once, I'm with you there, pal. Two of the nails had turned black and fallen off. That was when I had made up my mind to try out the letter. And the results had been unbelievable. Still, if Skipper Brannigan had a ghost, the car coral was likely where it would hang out, looking for fresh victims to torture. The voice on the phone couldn't have picked that place by accident. I tried to tell myself that was bullshit, that coincidences happened all the time, but I just didn't believe it. Mr. Sharpton knew about Skipper. Somehow he knew. I was afraid to meet him, but I didn't see what choice I had. If nothing else, I ought to find out what else he knew, and who he might tell. I got up, put on my coat. It was, of course, early spring then, and cold at night. Seems to me that it's always cold at night in western Pennsylvania. Started out the door, and went back, and left a note for Ma. Went out to see a couple of guys. I wrote, "We'll be back by midnight." I intended to be back well before midnight, but that note seemed like a good idea. I wouldn't let myself think too closely about why it seemed like a good idea. Not then. But I can own up to it now. If something happened to me, something bad, I wanted to make sure Mom would call the police. There are two kinds of scared. At least that's my theory. There's TV scared. And there's real scared. I think we go through most of our lives only getting TV scared. Like when we're waiting for our blood test to come back from the doctor, or when we're walking home from the library in the dark and thinking about bad guys in the bushes. We don't get real scared about shit like that. Because we know in our heart of hearts that the blood test will come back clean and there won't be any bad guys in the bushes. Why? Because stuff like that only happens to people on TV. When I saw the big gray Mercedes, the only car in about an acre of empty parking lot, I got real scared. For the first time since the thing in the box room with Skipper Brannigan. That time was the closest we ever came to really getting into it. Mr. Sharpton's ride was sitting under the light of the lot's yellow mercury vapor lamps. A big old Krautmobile, at least a 450 and probably a 500. The kind of car that costs $100 to $20,000 these days. Sitting there next to the cart coral, now almost empty for the night, all the carts except for one poor old three-wheeled cripple safely locked up inside, with its parking lights on and white exhaust drifting up into the air. The engine rumbling like a sleeping cat. I drove toward it, my heart pumping slow but hard, and a taste like pennies in my throat. I wanted to just mat the accelerator of my Ford, which in those days always smelled like pepperoni pizza. What? Never really remember any of the older vehicles I've ever seen ever do that. Huh. Must have been really bad pepperoni pizzas over that place he was talking about. And get the hell out of there. But I couldn't get rid of the idea that the guy knew about Skipper. I could tell myself there was nothing to know. That Charles Skipper Brannigan had either had an accident or committed suicide. The cops weren't sure which. They couldn't have known him very well. If they had, they would have thrown the idea of suicide right out the window. Guys like Skipper don't off themselves. Not at the age of 23, they don't. But that didn't stop the voice from yammering away that I was in trouble. Someone had figured it out. Someone had gotten a hold of the letter and figured it out. That voice didn't have logic on its side, but it didn't need to. It had good lungs and just outscreamed logic. I parked beside the idling Mercedes and rolled my window down. At the same time, the driver's side window of the Mercedes rolled down. We looked at each other, me and Mr. Sharpton, like a couple of old friends meeting at a hi-hat drive-in. I don't remember much about him now. That's weird considering all the time I spent thinking about him since, but it's the truth. Only that he was thin, and that he was wearing a suit. A good one, I think. Although judging stuff like that, that's not my strong point. Still, the suit eased me a little. I guess that, unconsciously, I had this idea that a suit means business, and jeans and a t-shirt means fuckery. "Hello, Dink," he says. "I'm Mr. Sharpton. Come on in here and sit down." "Why don't we just stay where we are?" I asked. "We can talk to each other through these windows. People do it all the time." He only looked at me and said nothing. After a few seconds of that, I turned off the Ford and got out. I don't exactly know why, but I did. I was more scared than ever. I can tell you that. Real scared. Real as real. Maybe that was why he could get me to do what he wanted. I stood between Mr. Sharpton's car and mine for a minute, looking at the cart coral and thinking about Skipper. He was tall, with his wavy blonde hair he combed straight back from his forehead. He had pimples and these red lips, like a girl wearing lipstick. "Hey, Dinky, let's see your dinky," he'd say. Or, "Hey, Dinky, want to suck my dinky?" Wow, what an asshole. You know, witty shit like that. Sadly, okay, maybe not to that extreme, but yeah, I got bullied a lot too, dude. I understand that. Sometimes when we were rounding up the carts, he'd chase me with one, nipping at my heels and going, you know, like fucking race car sounds. A couple of times he knocked me over. At dinner break, if I had my food on my lap, he'd bump into me good and hard. See if he could knock something onto the floor. You know the kind of stuff that I'm talking about? I'm sure. It was like he'd never gotten over those ideas of what's funny to bored kids sitting in the back row of study hall. I had a ponytail at work. You had to wear your hair in a ponytail if you had it long. Supermarket rules. And sometimes Skipper would come up behind me, grab the rubber band I used, and yank it out. Sometimes it would break and snap against my neck. It got it got so bad I'd stick 2 or 3 extra rubber bands between my pants pockets before I left work. I tried not to think about what I was doing it, what I was putting up with. If I did, I'd probably start hating myself. Once I turned around on my heels when he did that, he must have seen something on my face, because his teasing smile went away, and another one came up where it had been. The teasing smile didn't show his teeth, but the new one did. Out in the box room this was. There, where the north wall is always cold, because it backs up against the meat locker. He raised his hand and made them into fists. The other guys sat around with their lunches looking at us. I knew none of them would help. Not even Pug, who stands about 5'4", anyway, and weighs about 110 pounds. Skipper would have eaten him like candy, and Pug knew it. "Come on, ass face," Skipper said, smiling that smile. The broken rubber bands he had stripped out of my hair was dangling between 2 of his knuckles, hanging down like little red lizards' tongues. "Come on, you want to fight me? Come on." "Sure, I'll fight you." What I wanted was to ask why it had been me he settled on. Why it was me who somehow rubbed his fur the wrong way. Why it had to be any guy. But he wouldn't have had an answer, honestly. Guys like Skipper never do. They just want to knock your teeth out. So instead, I just sat back down, picked up my sandwich again. If I tried to fight Skipper, he'd likely put me in the hospital. I started to eat, although I wasn't hungry anymore. He looked at me a second or two longer, and I thought he might go after me anyway. But then he unrolled his fists. The broken rubber bands dropped onto the floor beside the smashed lettuce crate. "You waste," Skipper said. "You fucking long-hair hippie waste." Then he walked away. It was only a few days later he mashed my fingers between the 2 carts at the corral. And a few days after that, Skipper was lying on a... Sorry, I'm trying to read this. Was lying on satin in the Methodist church with the organ playing. He brought him on himself, though. At least that's what I thought then. A little trip down memory lane, Mr. Sharpton asked. And that jerked me back to the present. I was standing between his ear and mine, standing by the cart corral, where Skipper would never mash anyone else's fingers. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Hey, it doesn't matter. Hop in here, Dink. Let's have a little talk." I opened the door of the Mercedes and got in. Man, that smell. It's leather, but not just leather. You know how in Monopoly there's a get-out-of-jail-free card? When you have a car that smells like Mr. Sharpton's gray Mercedes, you must have a get-out-of-everything free card. I took a deep breath, held it, and then let it out and said, "This is eventual." Mr. Sharpton laughed, his clean-shaven cheeks gleaming in the dashboard lights. He didn't ask what I meant. He knew. "Everything is eventual, Dink," he said. "Or can be, for the right person." "You think so?" "No, so." a shred of doubt in his voice. I like your tie, I said. I said it just to be saying something, but it was true too. The tie wasn't what I'd call eventual, but it was good. You know those ties that are printed all over with skulls or dinosaurs or little golf clubs? Stuff like that. Mr. Sharpton's was printed all over with swords, a firm hand holding each one up. He laughed and ran down it, kind of stroking it. It's my lucky tie, he said. When I put it on, I feel like King Arthur. The smile died off of his face little by little, and I realized he wasn't joking. King Arthur? King Arthur, out gathering the best men there ever were. Knights to sit with him at the round table and remake the world. That gave me a chill, but I tried not to show it. What do you want with me, Art? Help you hunt for the Holy Grail or whatever they call it? A tie doesn't make a man a king. Oh, sorry. A tie doesn't make a man a king, he said. I know that in case you were wondering. I shifted, feeling a little uncomfortable. Hey, I wasn't trying to put you down. It doesn't matter, Dink. Really. The answer to your question is I'm 2 parts headhunter and 2 parts talent scout. And 4 parts walking, talking destiny. Cigarette? I don't smoke. That's good. You live longer. Cigarettes are killers. Why else would people call them coffin nails? You got me, I said. I hope so, Mr. Sharpton said, lighting up. I most sincerely hope so. You're top shelf goods, Dink. I doubt if you believe that, but it's true. What's this offer you were talking about? Tell me, what happened to Skipper Brannigan? Kabam! My worst fear come true. He couldn't know. Nobody could. But he somehow did. I only sat there feeling numb, my head pounding, my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth like it was glued there. Come on, tell me. His voice seemed to be coming in from far away, like on a shortwave radio late at night. I got my tongue back to where it belonged. It took an effort, but I managed. I didn't do anything. My own voice seemed to be coming through on that same shifty shortwave band. Skipper had an accident, that's all. He was driving home and he went off the road. His car rolled over and went into Lockerbie Stream. They found water in his lungs, so I guess he drowned. At least technically. But it was in the paper that he probably would have died anyway. Most of his head got torn up. His head nearly got torn off in the rollover. Or that's what people say. And some people say it wasn't an accident, that he killed himself. But look, Skipper was getting too much fun out of life to kill himself. Yes, you were part of his fun, weren't you? I didn't say anything, but my lips were trembling, and there were tears in my eyes. Mr. Sharpton reached over and put his hand on my arm. It was the kind of thing you'd expect to get from an old guy like him. Sitting with him in his big German car in a deserted parking lot. But I knew when he touched me that it wasn't like that. He wasn't hitting on me. It was good to be touched the way he touched me. Until then, I didn't know how sad I was. Sometimes you don't. Because it's just, I don't know, all around. I put my head down. I didn't start bawling or anything, but the tears went running down my cheeks. The swords on his tie doubled and tripled. 3 for 1. Such a deal. If you're worried that I'm a cop, you can quit. And I gave you money. That screws up any sort of prosecution that might come out of this. But even if that wasn't the case, no one would believe that what really happened to young Mr. Brannigan anyway. Not even if you confessed on nationwide television. Would they? No, I whispered. Then louder, I put up with a lot. Finally, I couldn't put up with any more. He brought it on himself. Tell me what happened, Mr. Sharpton said. I wrote him a letter. I said, a special letter. Yes, very special indeed. And what did you put in it so it could only work on him? I knew what he meant, but there was more to it than that. When you personalized the letters, you increased their power. You made them lethal, not just dangerous. His sister's name, I said. I think that was when I gave up completely. His sister, Debbie. I've always had some kind of deal, and I sort of knew it. But not to how to use it, or what its name was, or what it meant. And I sort of knew I had to keep quiet about it, because other people didn't have it. I thought they might put me in the circus if they found out, or in jail. I remember once, vaguely, I might have been 3 or 4. It's one of my first memories, standing by this dirty window and looking out at the yard. There was a wood chopping block and a mailbox with a red flag. So it must have been a while we were at Aunt Mabel's out in the country. That was where we lived after her father ran off. Ma got a job in the Harkerville Fancy Bakery, and we moved back into town later on. When I was 5 or so, we were living in town when I started school. I know because of Mrs. Burkowski's dog having to walk past the fucking canine cannibal 5 days a week. I'll never forget that day. It was a boxer with a white car. Sorry. God bless it. This text is a little small here. With a white ear. Sorry. Good Lord. This is what happens when the text can sometimes be really small and it's hard to read sometimes. Yeah, we're going to try to scoot up. There we go. Talk about memory lane. Anyway, I was looking out and there were these flies buzzing around at the top of the window. You know how they do. I didn't like the sound, but I couldn't reach high enough, even with the rolled up magazine, to swat them or make them go away. So instead of that, I made these 2 triangles in the window pane. On the window pane. Drawing in the dirt with the tip of my finger. And I made this other shape. A special circle shape. To hold the triangles together. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I closed the circle, the flies, there were 4 or 5 of them, dropped dead on the windowsill. Big as jelly beans. They were the black ones that taste like licorice. I picked one up and looked at it, but it wasn't very interesting. So I dropped it on the floor and went on looking out the window. Stuff like that would happen from time to time, but never on purpose. Never because I made it happen. The first time I remember doing something absolutely on purpose before Skipper, was when I was used my whatever it was on Mr. Burkowski's dog. Sorry, Mrs. Burkowski's dog. Mrs. Burkowski lived on the corner of our street when we rented on Dugway Avenue. Her dog was mean and dangerous. Every kid on the west side was afraid of the white-eared fuck. She kept it tied in her side yard. Hell. Staked out in her side yard is more like it. And it barked at everyone who went by. Not harmless yapping, like some dogs do. But the kind that says, if I could get you in here with me, or get out there with you, I'd tear your balls off. Brewster. Once the dog did get loose, and it bit the paper boy. Anyone else's dog probably would have sniffed gas for that. But Mrs. Burkowski's son was a police chief, and he fixed it up somehow. I hated that dog, the way I hated Skipper. In a way, I suppose, it was Skipper. I had to go by Mrs. Burkowski's on my way to school, unless I wanted to detour all the way around the block and get called a sissy boy. And I was terrified of the way that mutt would run to the end of its rope, barking so hard that foam would fly off of its teeth and muzzle. Sometimes it hit the end of the rope so hard it'd go right off its feet. You know how it does that whole reflex thing? Which might have hit it at the end of the rope so hard it'd go right off its feet, but yeah. Which might have looked funny to some people, but never looked funny to me. I was scared the rope, not a chain, but a plain old piece of rope would break one day, and the dog would jump over the low picket fence between Mrs. Burkowski's yard and Dugway Avenue, and it would rip my throat out. Then one day I woke up with an idea. It was right there. I woke up with it the way some days I'd wake up with a great big throbbing boner. Okay, seriously, dude, come on. Have some tact. It was a Saturday, bright and early, and I didn't have to go anywhere near Mrs. Burkowski's if I didn't want to. But that day I did want to. I got out of the bed and threw my clothes just as fast as I could. I did everything fast because I didn't want to lose that idea. I would too. I'd lose it the way you would eventually lose the dreams you wake up with. But right then, I had the whole thing in my mind, just as clear as a bell. Words with triangles around them and curlicues over them. Special circles to hold the whole shebang together. 2 or 3 of those overlapping for extra strength. I just about flew through the living room. Ma was still sleeping. I could hear her snoring, and and her pink bakery uniform was hung over the shower rod in the bathroom, and went into the kitchen. Ma had a little blackboard by the phone for numbers and reminders to herself. Ma's dayboard instead of Dinky's dayboard. I guess you'd say, but... And I stopped just long enough to get to gleep the piece of pink chalk hanging on a string beside it. I put it in my pocket and went out the door. I remember what a beautiful morning that was. Cold, but not too cool, but not cold. The sky so blue it looked like someone had run it through the Happy Wheels car wash. No one moving around much yet. Most folks sleeping in a little, like everyone likes to do on Saturdays, if they can. Mrs. Bukowski's dog wasn't sleeping in. Fuck no. That dog was a firm believer in Rudy Tooty, do your duty. It saw me, though, through the picket fence, and went charging to the end of its rope as hard as ever, maybe even harder, as if some part of its dim little doggy brain knew it was Saturday and I had no business being there. It hit the end of the rope, and went right back over backward. It was up again in a second, though, standing at the end of its rope and barking in its choky, "I'm strangling, but I don't care anyway." I suppose Mrs. Bukowski was used to that sound, maybe even liked it. But I've wondered since how the fucking neighbors stood it. I paid no attention that day. I was excited to be scared. I fished the chalk out of my pocket and dropped down on one knee. For 1 second I thought the whole works had gone out of my head. And that was bad. I felt despair and sadness trying to fill me up. I thought, no, don't let it. Dinky, fight it. Write anything. Even if it's only fucking Mrs. Bukowski's dog. But I didn't write that. I drew this shape. I think it was a sycophant instead. Some weird shape, but the right one. Because it unlocked everything else. My head flooded with stuff. It was wonderful, but at the same time it was really scary, because there was so fucking much of it. For the next 5 minutes or so, I knelt there on the sidewalk, sweating like a pig and writing like a mad fiend. I wrote words I'd never heard and drew shapes I'd never seen. Oh, give me a second. Oh, give me a second. My eyes. Oh, here we go. Shapes nobody had ever seen. Not just sycophants, but Japs and Fouders and Mercs. I wrote and drew until I was pink dust halfway into my right elbow. And Ma's piece of chalk was nothing but a little pebble between my thumb and finger. Mrs. Bukowski's dog didn't die like the flies, but it barked at me the whole time. And it probably drew back and ran out the length of the rope leash another time or two. But I didn't notice. I was in this total frenzy. I can never describe it to you in a million years, but I bet it's how great musicians like Mozart and Eric Clapton feel when they're writing their music, or how painters feel when they're getting their best work on canvas. If someone had come along, I would have ignored them. Shit, if Miss Bukowski's dog had finally broken its rope, jumped the fence, and clamped down on my ass, I probably would have ignored that. It was eventual, man. It was so fucking eventual. I can't even tell you. No one did come. Although a few cars went by and maybe the people in them wondered what the kid was doing, what he was drawing on the sidewalk. And Mrs. Bukowski's dog went on barking. At the end, I realized I had to make it stronger. And the way to do that was to make it just for the dog. I didn't know its name, so I printed Boxer with the last of the chalk, drew a circle around it, then made an arrow at the bottom of the circle, pointing to the rest. I felt dizzy. My head was throbbing, the way it does when you've just finished taking a super hard test, or if you spend too long watching TV. I felt like I was going to be sick, but I still also felt totally eventual. I looked at the dog. It was just as lively as ever, barking and kind of prancing on its back legs when it ran out of slack. But that didn't bother me. I went back home feeling easy in my mind. I knew Mrs. Bukowski's dog was toast. The same way I bet that a good painter knows when he's painted a good picture, or a writer who knows when he's written a good story. That's right. I think you just know. It sits there in your head and hums. 3 days later, the dog was eating the old dirt sandwich. I got the story from the best possible source when it comes to mean asshole dogs, the neighborhood mailman, Mr. Schermerhorn. His name was Mr. Schermerhorn. I'll just call him Mr. Sherm because I swear to God that I'm going to mess up his last name sometime soon. Mr. Sherm said Mrs. Bukowski's Boxer for some reason started running around a tree he was tied to. And when he got to the end of his rope, he couldn't get back. Mrs. Bukowski was out shopping somewhere, so she was no help. When she got home, she found her dog lying at the base of the tree in the side of her yard, choked to death. The writing on the sidewalk stayed there for about a week, then it rained hard, and afterward, there was just a pink blur. But until it rained, it stayed pretty sharp. And while it was sharp, no one walked on it. I saw this for myself. People, kids walking to school, ladies walking downtown, Mr. Schermerhorn, I actually said that right, the mailman would just kind of veer around it. They didn't even seem to know they were doing it. And nobody even talked about it either. Like, what's up with this weird shit on the sidewalk? Or, what do you suppose you call something that looks like that? Still, it was as if they didn't even see it was there. Except, part of them must have. Why else would they have walked around it? I didn't tell Mr. Sharpton all that, but I told him what he wanted to know about Skipper. I decided I could trust him. Maybe that secret part of me knew I could trust him, but I don't think so. I think it was just the way he put his hand on my arm. Like your dad would. Not that I have a dad, but I can't imagine. Plus, it was like he said, even if he was a cop and arrested me, what judge and jury would believe Skipper Brannigan had driven his car off the road because of a letter I sent him? Especially one full of nonsense words and symbols made up by a pizza delivery boy who had flunked high school geometry twice. When I was done, there was silence between us for a long time. At last, Mr. Sharpton said, "He deserved it. You know that, don't you?" And for some reason, that did it. The dam burst and I cried like a baby. I must have cried for 15 minutes or more. Mr. Sharpton put his arm around me and pulled me against his chest, and I watered the label of his suit. If someone had driven by and seen us that way, they would have thought we were a couple of queers for sure. But nobody did. There was just him and me under the yellow mercury vapor lamps. There by the cart coral. Still getting along this little shopping cart. Pug used to sing yibbity T-E-O or whatever. For if you know, Super Saver will be your new home. We laughed till we cried. At last, I was able to turn off the waterworks. Mr. Sharpton handed me a hanky and I wiped my eyes with it. "How did you know?" I asked. My voice sounded all deep and weird, like a foghorn. Once you were spotted, all it took was a little rudimentary detective work. Yeah, but how was I spotted? We have certain people, a dozen or so in all. We look for fellows and gals like you, he said. They can actually see fellow guys and gals like you, Dink. The way certain satellites in space can see nuclear piles of power plants. You folks show up yellow, like match flames, is how this one spotter described it to me. He shook his head and gave a wry little smile. I'd like to see something like that just once in my life. Or maybe be able to do what you do. Of course, I'd also like to be given a day, just one would be fine, where I could paint like Picasso. Or write like Faulkner. I gaped at him. Is that true? There are people who can see? Yes. There are bloodhounds. They crisscross the country, and all the other countries looking for the bright yellow glow, looking for match heads in the darkness. This particular young woman was on Route 90, actually headed for Pittsburgh to catch a plane home, to grab a little R&R when she saw you, or sensed you, or whatever it is they do. The finders don't really know themselves, any more than you really know what you did to Skipper, do you? What? He raised his hand. I told you that you wouldn't get all the answers you'd like. This is something you'll have to decide on the basis of what you feel, not what you know. But I can tell you a couple of things. To begin with, Dink, I work for an outfit called the Trans Corporation. Our job is getting rid of the world's skipper, Brannigans. The big ones. The ones who do it on a grand scale. We have a company headquarters in Chicago and a training center in Peoria, where you'll spend a week if you agree to my proposal. I didn't say anything then, but I knew I was going to say yes to his proposal. Whatever it was, I was going to say yes. You're a trainee, my young friend. Better get used to the idea. What is it? A trait. There are folks in our organization who think of what you have, what you can do, as a talent or an ability, or even a kind of glitch, but they're wrong. Talent and ability are born of trait. Trait is general. Trait, talent, and ability are specific. You'll have to simplify that. I am a high school dropout, remember? I know, he said. I also know that you didn't drop out because you were stupid. You dropped out because you didn't fit in. In that way, you are like every other trainee I've ever met. He laughed in the sharp way people do when they're not really amused. All 21 of them. Now listen to me, and don't play dumb. Creativity is like a hand at the end of your arm. But a hand has many fingers, doesn't it? Well, at least 5. Think of those fingers as abilities. A creative person may write, paint, sculpt, or think up math formulas. He or she might dance or sing or play a musical instrument. Those are the fingers. But creativity is in the hand that gives them life. And just as all hands are basically the same, form follows function. All creative people are the same once you get down to the place where their fingers join. Trends is also like a hand. Sometimes they're precognition, the ability to see the past. We have a guy who knows who killed John F. Kennedy, and it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. It was, in fact, a woman. There's telepathy, pyrokinesis, telepathy, and who knows how many others. We don't know, certainly. This is a new world, and we've barely begun to explore its first continent. But trends is different from creativity in one vital way. It's much rarer. One person in 800 is what occupational psychologists call gifted. We believe that there may only be one trainee in each 8 million people. That took my breath away. The idea you might be one of 8 million would take anybody's breath away, right? That's about 120 for every billion ordinary folks. He said, we think there may be no more than 300 so-called trainees in the world. Sorry, trannies? We're finding them one by one. It's slow work. The sensing ability is fairly low level, but we still only have a dozen or so finders. and each one takes a lot of training. This is hard work, or hard calling, but it's also fabulously rewarding. We're finding trainees, and we're putting them to work. That's what we want to do with you, Dink. Put you to work. We want to help you focus your talent, sharpen it, and use it for the betterment of all mankind. You won't be able to see any of your old friends again, sadly. There's no security risk on Earth like an old friend. We found, and there's not a whole lot of cash in it, at least to begin with. But there's a lot of satisfaction, and what I'm going to offer you is the only bottom rung of what may turn out to be a very high ladder. Don't forget those fringe benefits, I said, kind of raising my voice on the last word, turning into a question, if he wanted to take it that way. He grinned and clapped me on the shoulder. That's right, he said. Those famous fringe benefits. By then I was starting to get excited. My doubts weren't gone, but they were melting away. So tell me about it, I said. My heart was beating hard, but it wasn't fear. Not anymore. Make me an offer I can't refuse. And that's just what he did. 3 weeks later, I'm on an airplane for the first time in my life. And what a way to lose your cherry. Oh, jeez. The only passenger in a Lear 35 listening to Counting Crows pouring out of the quad speakers with a Coke in one hand, watching as the altimeter climbs all the way to 42,000 feet. That's over a mile higher than most commercial jetliners fly. The pilot told me anyway. And a ride as smooth as the seat of a girl's... Oh, jeez. I spent a week in Peoria, or Peoria, or hold on. Peoria? I'm just gonna say that. And I was homesick. Real homesick. Surprised the shit out of me. There were a couple of nights when I even cried myself to sleep. I'm ashamed to say that. But I've been truthful so far. I don't want to start lying or leaving things out now. Ma was the least of what I missed. You'd think we would have been close, as it was, us against the world, in a matter of speaking. But my mother was never much for loving and comforting. She didn't whip on my head or put out her cigarettes on my armpits or anything like that. But so what? I mean, big whoop. I've never had any kids, so I guess I can't say for sure. But I somehow don't think being a great parent is about stuff you didn't do to your rug monkeys. Ma was always more into her friends than me, and her weekly trip to the beauty shop, and Friday nights out at the reservation. Her big ambition in life was to win a 20-number bingo and drive home in a brand new Monte Carlo. I'm not sitting on the pity pot either. I'm just telling you how it was. Mr. Sharpton called Ma and told her that I had been chosen for an internship in the Trans Corporation's Advanced Computer Training and Placement Project, a special deal for non-diploma kids with potential. The story was actually pretty believable. I was a shitty math student and froze up almost completely in classes like English, where you were supposed to talk. But I was always good on terms with the school's computers. In fact, although I don't like to brag, I never let any of the faculty in on this little secret. I could program rings around Mr. Jake. I think it's Jaboy or Jacques Boy. I don't know. I'll just say Jacob for now until I can actually learn the pronunciation of that name. And Mrs. Wilcoxon. I never cared much about computer games. They're strictly for dick brains, in my humble opinion. Hey, you take that back, jackass. There's a lot of people out there that love computer games. Seriously, what is with this guy, right? But I could key jack like a mad motherfucker. Pug used to drop by and watch me sometimes. I can't believe you, he said once. And you got that thing smoking a token. I shrugged. Any fool can peel the apples, I said. It takes a real man to eat the core. So Ma believed it. She might have had a few more questions if she knew the Trans Corporation was flying me out to Illinois in a private jet, but she didn't. And I didn't miss her all that much. But I missed Pug and John Cassidy, who was our other friend from our Super Saver days. John plays bass in a punk band, wears a gold ring on his left eyebrow, and has just about every Sub Pop record ever made. He cried when Kurt Cobain ate the dirt sandwich. Didn't try to hide it or blame it on allergies either. Just said, I'm sad because Kurt died. John's eventual. And I missed Harkerville. Perverse but true. Being at the training center in Peoria was like being born again, somehow. And I guess being born always hurts. I thought I might meet some other people like me. If this was a book or a movie, or maybe just an episode of The X-Files, I would meet a cute chick with nifty little tits and the ability to shut doors from across the room. But that didn't happen. I'm pretty sure there were other trainees at Peoria when I was there, but Dr. Wentworth and the other folks running the place were careful to keep us separated. I once asked why and got a runaround. That's when I started to realize that not everybody who had Transcorp printed on their shirts or walked around with Transcorp clipboards was my pal or wanted to be my long lost dad. And it was about killing people. That's what I was training for. The folks in Peoria didn't talk about that all the time, but no one tried to sugarcoat it either. I just had to remember the targets were the bad guys. Dictators and spies and serial killers. And as Mr. Sharpton said, people did it in wars all the time. Plus, it wasn't personal. No guns, no knives, no garrots. I'd never get blood splashed on me. Like I told you, I never saw Mr. Sharpton again. At least not yet. I haven't, but I talked to him every day of the week. I was in Peoria. And that eased the pain and strangeness considerably. Talking to him like having someone put a cool cloth on your brow. He gave me his number the night we talked in his Mercedes and told me to call him anytime. Even at 3 in the morning, if I was feeling upset. Once I did just that, I almost hung up on the second ring, but because people may say, call them anytime, even at 3 in the morning, but they don't really expect you to do it. But I hung in there. I was homesick, yeah, but it was more than that. This place wasn't what I had expected, exactly. And I wanted to tell Mr. Sharpton so. See how he took it, kind of. He answered on the third ring, And although he sounded sleepy, big surprise there, huh? He didn't sound all that pissed. I told him that some of the stuff they were doing was quite weird. The test with all the flashing lights, for example. They said it was a test for epilepsy, but I went to sleep right in the middle of it, I said. And when I woke up, I had a headache and it was hard to think. You know what I felt? A file cabinet after someone's been rummaging through it. What's your point, Dink? Mr. Sharpton asked. I think it hypnotized me, I said. And you know what? I think this is where we're going to leave it for right now. And actually, if I remember correctly, we're actually already a little bit past the halfway point in the book. So, we will be coming back to this particular page very soon. So, I'm actually very excited that next Saturday we'll be continuing the story of Everything's Eventual here on the channel for a new segment I like to call Mr. RetroActive's Corner or RetroActive's Corner Story Mode. If you guys like what we do, please follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Mr. RetroActive Live Streams. If you guys want to know more about the schedule, check out our website, which has links to everything, including the places where you can help support the channel, such as donations through PayPal, Twitch, and Facebook, through Stars, Bits, or just the PayPal account, or you can join us on our Patreon, or subscribe to us on our Twitch channel, or our Facebook page as well. Alright, so tomorrow, folks, we're starting with day 2. I hope you guys are going to be excited because we're back to sports, and it's Mutant Football League, baby! We're back doing some more of that for Halloween month, and we'll be doing Mutant Football League for the rest of the month. So I hope you guys are going to be excited for some carnage, mayhem, and blood and gore. It's going to be awesome. Of course, Monday we are going to be doing a different game altogether, so we're going to be doing just a random horror game just for you guys, or whatever game I just happen to have on hand. And of course, on Tuesday, we're continuing the Kirby completion by trying to finish the rest of it on Tuesday. So until then, my friends, I hope you all have an amazing day. I will see you all next time, and we're going to let this cutscene sign us out. Have a great day, everyone. Well, until then, I hope you all have an amazing day. I will see you all next time. This is Mr. RetroActive signing out. Have a great day, everybody.